Welcome back. And on our screens in front of us is the task at hand. This is exercise, I'd rather lab 4 that follows exercise 4. And looking at this one can look a little bit daunting early on. But let's think back to exercise lab number 3, where we've used a lot of the same things that we will need to use here. We're going to add a couple new tools. We're going to do some more with patterning. We're going to create some other things as well. But we're going to get you through the basics of completing this part. All right. So let's go ahead and do it. So looking at our manuals here, we're on page 51 for lab 4. So let's take a look at our drawing and get things sorted out here. All right, so multi-view drawing again. We've got 5 views on here. Actually, we're going to have 6 because we have a rear side view as well. Let's just focus on the first part here. So we're going to start off, we're going to sketch out this general shape, the outside perimeter of things. Looking to the side here, we do have some draft of 25 degrees. It's going to run the whole way around the part. We do have a radius around of a half an inch in radius that runs around the top side right here. On this front edge down at the bottom, we also have a chamfer that runs there that is spec'd out at 30 degrees, and then a distance of 0.13 inches as well, if I remember correctly, hiding out there, 0.181 rather. But that's there. And then we have a series of holes that we need to make through this guy. A series of 5 that we use a patterning tool for. We use a pattern tool again to add this little detail, these little rectangles. And then we're pretty much there. And we have some posts to put on here, and we are going to be good. All right, so let's get into it. And we're going to start off with a new file. So we're going to do another new part. Give it a name. Let's go ahead and call this one L4 video in my case, so I can keep track of everything. And we're going to go ahead and turn on planes. We're going to go ahead and start off in a sketch mode. Well, actually, in an extrude mode. Let's go right to that extrude mode. Looking at that front plane directly on. And let's go ahead and extrude. And we're going to do that right on this front plane. So that's going to get us into sketch mode. And away we go. So we have a couple of different lines here that we need to start off with. And kind of the order of operations here is we're going to set these 2 lines. We're going to set an axis. We're going to mirror like we did in lab number 3. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to use some tangent arcs, top and bottom, to get those together. And then set our dimensions with their center distance apart of 1.25. And then the distance from this corner to our center of the arc below of 1 inch. And once we do that, we should be pretty locked in there, and we will be able to go ahead and move on from that first section. So let's go ahead and get that done. All right, here we go. We'll see how the constraints behave today, and we'll get through them anyway. So starting with the center line, left click on the origin, straight up another left click into our line tool, and give ourselves something that looks like that part of the drawing there. We're going to end that, and we're going to center click on there so that we can select all those things. And we're going to come up and mirror. Click on the mirror line, and there we go. We have that. All right, so let's go ahead and get something into scale here to start off. Let's go ahead. Where should we start? Let's get a dimension in here. How about that? Nope, that's not what we want. Try that one more time. So point to point over here. And let's get that to, that is supposed to be an inch. Okay. Got that. Let's go ahead and get in with our tangent arc at the bottom. Make sure we've got tangent arc, 3-point tangent end. Okay, there we go. There. Come up here to here. And give ourselves shape-wise something that looks similar. And let's come in and set the size, the dimension of those arcs. That lower one has a radius of 0.75. So we're going to change what it's scaled to. Our upper one is 1.5 inches, 1.5. Easier said than done sometimes, 1.5. 1.5, enter. Let's go back into that again. Get out of that dimension tool. Double click. Why is that? Let's replace that. Let's do a dimension on there. And out of the dimension. Double left click, 1.5, enter. There we go. Sometimes you're going to run into weird stuff, and I'm not entirely sure why it was not cooperating in there, but sometimes you just got to try things a couple different ways and go ahead and get it. So we have 2 angle dimensions set here. We need to set the angle for this to 23 degrees and the angle between this line and this line to 115. So we have a couple angle dimensions. Let's just go ahead and grab one of those and replace it. So they're here to here. Put that one up there. That's 115 degrees. And then we have this one that is right here. We'll go ahead and replace that one. Replace this to this. And we'll put that one up there. That's okay. We can go ahead and clean these up a little bit, and that is 23 degrees. Now let's go ahead and do that so we don't get too messy. So we can left click on that 115, drag that one up, bring this one down, bring this one in. It's all about making this stuff a little bit more readable. Okay. So we got that. We need one more from center to center, which we're going to replace this one with. So let's go ahead and click on there. Let's replace, go here to here. And that one should be 1.25. There we go. Now we are looking the part. Nope, not quite. This dimension here is not on the center. So we need that dimension really needs to be from this point to that center of the arc. So let's go ahead and replace that one. Make sure we get on that point. Make sure we get on that center. Here. There we go. That looks better. 1, enter. There we go. Now we got our shape a little bit better. So our dimensions are good. We got everything in there. And our first hurdle's out of the way. All right, so let's go ahead and hit OK. So we get into the extrude mode automatically. Our thickness of this part overall is 1/2 inch, and we find that right over here, 1/2 inch wide. Let's set that extent 0.5. Let's get into those options because we do also have draft, which was spec'd out at 25 degrees right here. So let's get that taper in there, that draft in there, 25. And that's running the opposite direction. So we got to flip that sign, get a negative in front of it. So we run the other way. And we hit OK. And we are underway, definitely. Got our main body there. All right, we have a couple of other things to play with. Remember, we have a radius of 0.5, so around a 0.5 that comes around here. And then on the front here, we have that chamfer feature on the front there that runs on this part of things, which is a 30-degree angle and 0.181 extent. So we'll do a little bit different kind of a chamfer there. So let's get those done. So first things first, let's do the round. Let's set that radius at 0.5. Let's zoom in so we get that part that we want to grab. That done. Now I've got to work on this chamfer here. So when we're doing that, let's flip our view so we're looking at the right side of things. It's a little bit easier to line up. Start with our chamfer tool. Okay, and we want to go to a different option here. It's distance, distance. We want to do angle and distance on this one. So angle and distance. We're going to click on this front edge here. We're going to come up here. And we're going to set the angle up here was 30 degrees. And the distance was 0.181. All right, so 30 degrees, 0.181 distance. And we are good. So 0.181 is this edge to here. 30 degrees, measuring the angle at the front there. All right, okay. And already we are looking pretty nice. So the back side of this, if we look at, let's see here. Let's go back to our sheet. We have a typical wall thickness that's spec'd out at 60 thousandths. And when we look at the sectional view here, we don't see a whole lot that happens to be solid material. Really, it is just this. So it appears that this whole thing is shelled. So we can go ahead and use the shell tool. Let's knock that out with the shell tool, 60 thousandths thickness. Let's flip around to the back, come to the shell tool, set our thickness, 60 thousandths. Click on the part that we want to be open. All right, shell thickness 60 thousandths, hit the OK, and we are hollow on the back. All right, let's come back to the front here. We've got some work to add some other features on the front side. Not the bottom side. Let's try the front side one more time. There we go. And we have some little bit of craziness here. And let's look at that. So we have a couple of features that are centered. We have this series of 15 little rectangles. And then we have this series of 5 pass-through holes that are on here. We can see them from the front here and from the side as they pass through. So let's look at that. And let's work on this one first. So if I'm looking at this, let's get in a little bit closer. I have this feature. We're going to just look at this one in the center. And it shows that the center of this radius down here at the bottom, which is 0.1 inches, 100 thousandths radius, and then the top is 200 thousandths radius. And we see that the center point of this one lies on this construction line, which has a radius of 0.7. So we need a construction line of 0.7. That tells us where our center is for this. And then it also we space out by 1/2 an inch here to here to get the center of that second one. All right, so let's set that up, and then we'll do a couple of lines that are tangent, connecting those two circles, and we will be good on that. All right, so back to our front view. Okay, I think for the time being, I'm going to just shut the plane off. It's a little bit distracting right now. And we're going to go ahead and start an extrusion. Extrusion on this face right here. We need to set up that circle. Do a center and point circle. Click on here to wake up the center. Left click on the center. Drag out. Left click to end it. And then we center click on there to get that. And we need to put in our dimension there. So it was 0.7 was the radius for that, right? Yep. So we have our choice here. We're in diameter mode. We go ahead and we just flip that to radius. Nope, that's not what we want. That one. We don't want that one there. We know the radius of that one. That's not relevant to what we're doing. Let's go ahead and delete that one. Let's zoom in so that we click on the thing that we want. But we want to switch that to radius. So let's practice that. So left click on there once. We're going to change that to radius. It's 0.7. There we go. And then we're going to also go ahead and change that. So we're going to left click on there one more time to a construction line. Because if we don't change it to a construction line, but we go to extrude what we're drawing here, we're not going to get a region that's defined like we want it to be. Okay, Creo's a little bit weird that way compared to some other softwares in how you set up those sketches and what it's picking to extrude by default and options that you have there. All right, so we've got that. We know that our center point of that circle is going to start on that construction line. So we got to find that. So there it is. So there's our center point there. Drag out. Okay, and then we are going to get that dimension right so we don't have to come back and do it later. Diameter it's in right now. Let's go to radius. So 100 thousandths radius there. And then we have the other part of the circle. We're going to go ahead and add up there. So we have some choices here. Let's just go ahead and just draw ourselves a basic construction line real quick. We could do that. We could also offset that construction line. Let's do it that way. So we can go ahead and select that construction line. And we can use the offset tool. Can we use the offset tool on a construction line in Creo? I don't think we can. Let's go ahead and select that. No, it's not letting me do that. All right, so we're just going to do it the other way. Wanted to try something else out. We tried. All right, so let's do it the other way. Let's just draw a line. We know it's a 1/2 inch from here to here. So end that. Get that set 0.5, right? It was 1/2 an inch. Yep, 0.5. And then come back and let's draw that other circle. All right, left click. Oh, left click, not a center click. Center click on there to get that dimension. And we want to flip that dimension to radius. So go 200 thousandths on that one. And then at this point, we're going to go ahead and click on that line, flip it to a construction line. So see what happens? That region comes back up again. We're able to do something with it. We're going to go line tool, and we're going to do line tool. We're going to draw 2 lines connecting these two. Okay, and look down at the bottom there. It went ahead and did tangent on there automatically. Let's go ahead and make sure. See, we don't have that tangent demarcation, that indication up here. So let's go ahead and click after we click on that tangency constraint on the line and then on the circle. And then we have tangency there. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and just click on that line. And then we're going to use the mirror tool. Again, remember, it's about trying to save yourself time. So mirror, make the center. There we go. We got it to the other side. Now we are going to delete some segments because we need this gone, that gone, and then these two gone. And that one there. And then we should be good on that one. All right, so we got our sketch done. Let's click out of there and hit OK. Oh, look at that. We got an error. So it caught us and said, hey, something is incomplete. And I got too fast and I clicked. So let's go back and undo that. Can we undo that? Redo? Nope. Once you hit the wrong option in that pop-up, the redo is no longer there. All right, that's okay. We know what we're doing. Let's do an extrusion again. Should be a lot easier the second time around. Let's start that construction line. That. Left click, center click to get the dimension in. We know we want to left click and change that radius to 0.7. 0.7. There we go. Left click on there once, change it to construction. Zoom in a little bit. Smaller circle on that construction line. Make sure you get it on that construction line. There it is. I feel like I'm just having trouble seeing my own construction line here this morning. There it is. Should probably change my settings on how those construction lines appear on video, but all right, so let's go ahead and get that reset. Let's get that out of there. Accidentally created a second little tiny circle there. Get rid of that one. All right, so this was, we said, radius of 100 thousandths. Flip that to a radius. We got there. Let's go ahead and add that little construction line in here. Center click to end. Center click so we get the dimension on this line. That is 1/2 an inch. Left click on there. Add that as a construction. Get that top circle in there. That one we're going to go 200 thousandths on that one, 0.2. We're going to add the line back on here. We're going to go one side to the other. And then this time, because we started up here, we got a tangent constraint up on there automatically. We just need to go ahead and fix this bottom one. And then go ahead, exit out of that constraint by center clicking twice. Left click on that line. And then mirror. And pick the mirror line. And delete some segments. And everything's gone. I hit the OK. We don't want to exit the sketchers. We have that little error there. Ah, look at that. That's what it is. We have a little segment that's still left. So we zoom in and we see that's the problem there. All right, so let's delete that segment. Creo does a good job of alerting you to where those issues are with a sketch, which is really nice. A lot of programs don't do that. They'll just give you a general error, or your extrude won't work. It won't region. You won't be able to grab that thing, and it just assumes that you're going to have a good time trying to go through and locate that. So let's hit the OK again. There we go. That's what we want to see. Let us go ahead and move material. We're going to flip our angle because it looks like our angle is still a wonky way there. There we go. Let's go ahead and just set that to through all, just so that is always good. I'm going to hit the OK. And take a look. And we've got that one, that feature there, but now we just got to make several copies. So we need 5 of those in total. So we're going to make sure that extrude feature is highlighted on our tree at the left. We're going to come to pattern, right? Come to pattern, and then we got to choose an axis type. Okay, we're going to pick how many things. We're going to pick an axis. Where's our axis going to be? Let's see. Let's turn on that CSYS. Is that on right now? No, it's on. Okay. But notice our CSYS is down here, because when we are picking an axis, we need to pick something, right? And normally we'll use the CSYS, but it's not where we want it to be. So look what happens when we do that and we choose the options. Let's try it and see what happens here. So we're picking, we want 2 of those, we want 3 of those, and we want the distance between those, the angle set between those, to be 24. Okay. Look what happens. It's picking that as the center because we chose that. So that's not going to work really well. So it's something that we missed, and this is a good thing to do because you need to put an axis in here. Now we can put an axis through the object, okay, by selecting axis. Remember, this is our solid one. And then we need to pick a radius. And we want it centered right there, right? Because that's where we're going to have everything centered around. So we got that. We have an axis in there now, which is excellent because we need to see that. So now we have that. Let's try that feature one more time. Let's go to extrude. And let's go to pattern. There we go. Now we got that axis there. Now we should be in better shape. We can pick that axis. Can we pick that one on there? It dropped away on us. Okay, so that axis is there. Let's try and recreate that again. I think we recreated it because we were highlighted on there. Let's just try creating that axis one more time. Axis. And let's click on an outer edge here. And see, that's the difference there. So the axis before, when we had extrude highlighted, we created it and it became a subcomponent of that. So let's see if that works a little bit better. Nope, still the same thing. Let's try it out one more time. So we're going to pattern this. We're going to do an axis. And it doesn't give us access to the axis. Say that 5 times. So let's cancel that. Let's go back. And let's go back and fix something earlier in our history. So what we want to do, what we could have done when we were sketching that original thing, is a smart thing to have done would have been to put the center of all these arcs right on the origin. So make the Z the axis for that. Let's go back and do that. So if we go to this original feature, okay, we click on that, we go back to this sketch, and we go back and we edit definitions. Here we are, we're back in our history. And we want to center the center of this arc up here on that origin. So let's go ahead and do that. And that's going to make our life a lot easier when we're trying to do these patterns. This is one of those things that just takes time. You know, the more you do this, the more you're going to be thinking several steps ahead. And when we're newer at this, sometimes it's easy to forget about some of that stuff. So let's go ahead and make the center of this coincident with down here. Okay. So let's do that. Let's go ahead, coincident constraint. Come and grab the center point of the arc. And then we have this point down here. There we go. So now we're on the origin. We're going to hit OK. Our model's going to regenerate. And now, if we look, our CSYS is now the center of that. So when we do this pattern, click on Extrude, Pattern, and we do an axis pattern. Look at that. We can come in, we can click on Z. There we go. That's the center we wanted. It's the center we always wanted. Oh my goodness. All right, 3 and 24 degrees between those. So we're making a pattern of 3. Let's go ahead and hit OK. There we go. We got 3, but we need 5. So that's easy enough. Let's do that. So we're going to click on this pattern, make sure we're highlighted. We're going to mirror that. Let's mirror it across the plane, but we don't see the plane, so let's bring those back real quick. And let's click on this right side plane. And there we go. Pattern to the other side, mirror, pattern, and a mirror combined together to get what we needed there. All right, take that coffee break. You've earned it, definitely. You've all earned it. We got to this part. And we have to get this one done. So let's get this one done. This one looks a lot worse than it actually is. It starts off, we have a circle with a radius of, or diameter rather, 0.835. And then we're going to put a radius on that raised circle, which is raised 30 thousandths, and put a radius of 30 thousandths on it. So 0.835 up 30 thousandths, radius 30 thousandths. Okay, so that is going to be an extrusion on this face. I'm going to do a circle to the center, click, the left click rather than the center one. Now we center click on there to go ahead and get that dimension on there. And we are 0.85, what it was, 0.835. So 0.835. Okay, we're going to hit OK. That is going to come up only 30,000, so 0.030 on the depth. I'm going to hit OK on that one. Now we're going to come and round over those corners with the round. Set that radius to 30 thousandths. And then we're going to come in and make sure we get clicked on the right thing so we don't create a mess. There we go, and hit OK. All right, we have that sitting there. And now we got to go through and make all of these little guys right here. So what do we have to do there? So we have 15 of those, a series of 15. We're going to be centered, okay, on this line. Actually, we're going to be centered right here, 0.371 from the center of that CSYS, from the center of our object there. or assigned center rather, or assigned origin of that thing. It's the best way to put it. So that little rectangle, let's see where that info is at. Oh, there it is right here. So the width of each one of those is 50 thousandths, and the height is 100 thousandths. And again, that is centered 0.371 inches from the center. Okay. 0.371. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's get back to our front view so we can see that. Let's do a sketch right out of here. Let's set up a little line to help us out. That's 0.371. We're going to just keep that as a line temporarily, and then we'll get rid of it. So we know we have 50 thousandths wide, 100 thousandths tall. And if we use this regular corner rectangle we use a lot of times, we're going to run into problems. Center rectangle is perfect right here. So we're going to set the center on the end of that line. And then we're just going to draw out the rectangle. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of, let's flip it to a construction line. Let's leave it there. Okay, now that comes so that we can do something with it. We are 0.05 wide, and height is 0.1, 10 thousandths, 50 thousandths. And we're going to hit OK. And we're going to go ahead and extrude that guy. We're going to remove material, flip our arrow around, going all the way through everything. So through all, hit that OK. And there we go. Now we just need 14 more of them. So click on that extrude, back to our pattern. We're going to do another axis pattern. We're going to choose that axis, which is going to be that Z. Should we get the Z, not the X? Okay, we need a whole lot of them. So we need to have 15 in total. And then we need to set the angle in between all of those. So instead of doing 360 divided by 15 in our head and just having that up, just 360 divided by 15 right there. There we go. Hit OK. Got a whole lot of holes in there. We do need to add a bit of a round on that, if I remember correctly. It's going to end up on the inside of that, so we're going to add that right here. So we're going to do a round of 0.1, so 100 thousandths, and that is spec'd out on our plans. It is right here. Okay. On the inside of that hole, so it's towards the center, 100 thousandths. So here we go, fun with the round, so 100 thousandths. And let's start picking all the stuff. That one, and that one, and that one. Now you could also, and a good time to remember that okay, whoops, that one's not quite right. Oh, let's go ahead and delete that one. That one wasn't in the right spot. Let's try that one again. There we go. So looking at this, Something doesn't look right there. I think that's actually supposed to be on this one. Let's cancel that. It's okay. All right, it doesn't take that long to do some rounds. So round 100,000ths. A little bit of choice in some things, and I like the way that this looks a little bit better the other way, so I'm going to go with that. Now, if I was in some CAD classes, when I'm looking at and evaluating work, and hit OK, I'll get a volume measurement of a part when it's done. So if that was the case, if we were doing that in here, we'd have to be very particular about where that round is, making sure we get it everywhere so we're dead on. But here we're, all right, so we got that. And then just to add a little bit to it, we have in the center here, this little circle feature. Kind of looks like a Death Star if you're a Star Wars dork like me. That doesn't begin to describe it, but definitely describes me. Let's go back and let's throw that on there. Okay, so we'll do a quick extrude. We're going to do it right here. No dimensions on this one. Just something we're eyeballing. Circle there, circle here. And we got something that looks like the last thing Jetta ever saw. I digress here. Let's go ahead and remove some material. Let's go in 10,000ths on that one. Let's get the arrow the right way. Oh, that's 100,000ths. That's a whole lot farther than we want to go. 10,000ths. There we go. So numbers do matter. And there we go. We got that little detail. All right, let's flip around to the back. Let's add a couple things on the back there. And we will be done. You know, this one looked daunting, but it's really not that bad if you just break things down into parts. And yep, we had a couple stumbles along the way, but that's okay. All right, so what do we need on the back? We need a raised ring in the middle here. Zoom back out a little bit. We need this right here. So we have a ring that's raised up, 0.375, right? Nope. That is, we've got to follow the leaders. 0.130. 0.130 is how far out this sticks. And it is 0.5 in the center, 0.6 in diameter there, and 0.130 in extent. So let's get an extrusion added there. Okay, let's extrude. Let's draw some stuff on there. Center point circle, 1. Second one, it's a little bit smaller. Get some dimensions there. Larger one, 0.6. Smaller one, 0.5. Let's go ahead and extrude that to a height of 0.130, 130 thousandths. All right, looking good there. All right, last thing we got to do, and just a little diversion into mold making, which was what my dad did for 35 years or so. I was a machinist and made molds for plastic parts, very much like this and lots of other things. Kinds of plastic parts, spray nozzles on bottles, all kinds of stuff you don't really think a whole lot about when you look at it. But at some point, somebody had to draw plans for that mold and spend lots and lots of time and at very high precision to get that mold made. So what we're talking about, and we got to add, is these bosses here. And bosses, what they do when you're molding something is a couple of things. They may give you a place through which to inject that plastic into a thing. They also give you another place to help push out potentially a part out of that steel mold once it's done and it opens up and you got to kick that thing out. You might have some pins that come through and hit this thing that knock the part out of the mold when it's done. So we got to add these little bosses. In this case, the bosses on this one aren't for molding purposes, but we're going to have some molding considerations on there when we create them. Well, these are actually going to help us locate one half to the other of this part. Because essentially what this is an older like Bluetooth phone device when you had a separate Bluetooth device for mic and for talking on the phone and when you're using hands-free. It's an older version of things, not used too much anymore, but that's what we're got to do. So we have 3 of those. They are 0.175 in diameter. We have a hole that is 100 thousandths and 100 thousandths deep, and it's in 3 places. And this one is located 3/4 of an inch from center, and from center up, 1/8 of an inch. All right, so let's remember all those dimensions, 0.175. Let's set the location and all that other stuff. So here we go. All right, so looking at the back side, let's look at straight on so we can see what we're doing. Let's do an extrusion. All right, extrude. We're going to extrude on this face. So we're going to do circles. And we're going to get it close, right? Okay, and it's going to be 0.175, 0.175. And then we're going to locate it. 0.175. And then we're going to locate it 3/4 from there. 0.125 from here. 1/8 of an inch from there. We're going to hit OK. And we're going to bring that one out. How far was that? That's the missing piece here. 0.375. And notice that those do have a little bit of draft on there, a little bit of an angle to them. That is a molding thing because when you kick that out of a mold, you want to have that little bit of draft so the mold doesn't get locked, the part doesn't get locked into the mold. So we'll give it a degree or 2 there so that we have that. So 0.375 extension. 0.375. There we go. Let's add that taper. Let's add 1 degree and let's look at it from the side and make sure we got it the right way. That looks good, right? If we flip that sign and go the other way, what happens? Yeah, that's the wrong way. So positive was the right way that we wanted it. Okay, so we got that back, running back the opposite way. Let's hit OK on that one. All right, let's go ahead and choose that extrusion. Highlight it. We need another one that's over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that one on the other side. So we're going to mirror that. And we're going to choose that there. There we go. Yeah, before we do that though, let's do the last thing that we got to do on here. I'll cancel. We need to put a hole into this thing. So let's do a sketch on there real quick. An extrusion on this face. The diameter of that hole was 100 thousandths. So let's put that. Wake up that center. How about we do a concentric one here? Let's do that. So we do another practice, something different. Click on that one, get out of there. Escape out of that one. Just want that one. Exit out of tool. 0.1. There we go. Hit OK. Let's just do a sketch instead of going right to an extrusion there. Let's see how that one works. So a circle, if it's concentric. Point one. Okay, now let's extrude. There we go. And then we need that hole to go down to a depth of 100 thousandths. Okay, so let's go the other way. Okay, hit OK on there. And now let's go ahead and let's mirror that feature there. Okay, and mirror that across that plane. Lovely. We got that. Okay, we have one more that we need to do at the bottom there. That's going to work exactly the same way as the other one. Let's see if we can rip through that bottom one a little bit quicker. And that one is located right on center of this. Okay, so the center of that arc right here is going to be right there. All right, so one more extrusion. Going to do it on there. Going to do a circle. Sure, we can do concentric on that one too. Why not? Bring it in. Center to exit. This is 0.175. Enter. Hit OK. Extrude that was 0.375. Go to the options. Options, add a taper. 1 degree of taper on there so we can get it out of the mold easier. Hit that OK. Come and do that sketch on the top face there. Oh, no, not on that datum plane. I cancel that one. Let's try that one. There we go. There we go. And do that concentric circle. Thousandths. Hit OK. Extrude that guy. Back the other way in 100 thousandths. Hit OK. And let's go one step farther. Let's go ahead and add some ribs onto this thing real quick, onto those bosses to make them a little bit stronger. So let's go back and look at that back view. Let's go and make a new sketch right on here. Let's sketch a couple lines. Okay, so lines. And what those are, we just need to go ahead and draw some lines like this. One there, one over here. And what we're doing is we're setting up where we want these ribs to be. And what we use those for when we're designing molds, designing parts that are going to be molded, is it's something that's going to give it a little bit more strength. Okay. And give a little bit more strength to that boss that's there. We don't have to be particular about it. Just want you to try it out. Okay. So now let's go to rib. Finish that sketch. We're going to come up to this rib. And we're going to go ahead and pick those things that we did. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete that. We missed something. All right, so let's do that one more time. Let's do that rib. All right, we're going to hold off on there. We'll add those ribs into something else. We're getting a little bit long already on there. That's okay. But what we have is really what we need. Okay, the ribs are just something extra, so maybe I'll throw that in another video in the future here. If you want to check that part out too right now, because you really are burning to add those things in there. If you check out Chris Sikora's video on this particular part, I know he runs that at the end and adds those in there. I'm just missing something on there, and I got class starting in a minute here, so gotta go. So there it is, exercise 4's lab number 4. One that looked a whole lot scarier than it really is. Just break them down. Think it through. Plan things out. Look at those features. Plan those features out. Break those down one operation at a time, and you will get through it every time. All right, there you go. See you later.